Well, hello again, brothers, sisters in Christ. Pastor Mike here. Hopefully everyone is doing well. December is hopefully continuing to go well for you because we just started it. Yeah. Man, Christmas is almost here. We are less than 20 days till Christmas Eve, brothers and sisters. I will be frank. I will be earnest. I don't necessarily know if my head is ready for that truth. 2023 is almost done. We're almost on 2024. There is sometimes the blessing of not writing checks because that is always awkward for the first month of the year, writing the wrong date. But here we are nonetheless, and we are into this season of Advent. The upcoming Sunday will be the second Sunday of Advent. There are these 4 Sundays, these 4 candles that we light, that guide us, that ground us in our preparatory reality. That is the first thing on my head, is just head and heart, is just a reminder this season is preparatory. I know the world is pushing us to Christmas. It has been since October, but I think we need to make time for Advent. We need Advent. We need Advent because I think we need to slow down. That is one of the side blessings of this season. We rush to Christmas, and then all of a sudden, it's done, as opposed to the fact that there are many things in life where we wish to go to them too quickly, that we don't take the time and the energy to prepare ourselves, to ground ourselves, to get us where we need to be. Advent is a blessing, brothers and sisters. Take advantage of it. But these first 2 weeks, as we stand between them, are interesting. The first is always a text that kind of transitions us from Christ the King and the second coming of Christ toward the first coming of Christ. And we are now in the year of Mark, and so we get a very interesting, question. How do we prepare for something when we don't know what's coming? And that was hopefully what I was able to bring to light last Sunday, is that we are preparing for something when we don't know when it is coming. And we should not give into anxiety. We should not give into fear of the unknown. We shouldn't get stuck in that. But ground ourselves in that something good is coming. We don't know when, we don't know what. But the coming of Christ is always good for his people. And that we should have the expectating. We shouldn't, have our head so focused on the negative or other stuff that we miss the goodness when it happens. Like when we receive a present and we don't really realize maybe how much time and energy and love was put into it because we weren't expecting it. I know second service, fun fact, sometimes I switch up sermons because I didn't like how something went or time is wonky. But I gave the example that I wanted to give that I didn't give at the early service in the second service, which was always my children when they're much younger, waiting for Grandpa and shenanigans. It was funny when we lived in New York, Leo, and even little Aiden, little tiny Aiden, there was this joyous expectation of when Grandpa was showing up when they knew he was coming. And it was always hard to tell him, well, Grandpa will be here in a couple days. They took a long drive out from here to get to New York. And the window watching and the, what's that noise? But this expectation of, he didn't know the day or the hour, but he knew it was going to be fun and shenanigans, should really be our Advent preparation. We don't know the day or hour. We don't know when we're going to meet Christ, maybe even in the other. But when we have that opportunity, we should be looking for it joyfully, not fearfully like the other shoe will drop. Now we move quickly in this season of Mark to the second Sunday of Advent, which brings a wonderful character on the scene, John the Baptist. John the Baptist is that wonderful individual who prepares the way, who gets us ready, which is both the good news and the hard news of this text. The good news of John when we deal with him is that we are not left to our own devices to get ready. Sometimes in the spiritual journey, people can get confused, and just because it's an individual journey doesn't mean we don't get support along the way. Human beings, especially in this era, this time, have the inability to maintain any sort of balance, in my opinion. It's either one extreme or the other. The pendulum just flies everywhere. Either we think, other people have to be responsible for our journey, or we have to do it in isolation. And neither of those are true. It's our journey, we're responsible for it. But we are often given guides, guideposts, companions on the journey, and they are blessings. And John is for the church and for Christians that guide of we need to prepare. He calls us, he grounds us, he pushes us. And this Sunday we encounter him. And that is the blessing, that we are not alone in it. We're not left to our own devices, but that we have this guide. We have these tools. John the Baptist's work is Advent midweek services and all these other things, Advent candles, these rhythms, these tools, these gifts to help us get the right headspace for the coming of the Christ. But John also in his rough attitude reminds us, and this is hard, that sometimes what we want to cling to in preparation is not what's really important. That it doesn't matter. And that's the hard word I'm thinking of somewhat on this Sunday is, what are our preparations truly for? Just as we need to prepare, and the season's about this, for something good, are we going to overarch our preparations with what we think it should be, that we need it to be? And sometimes that causes huge issues. The Christ child often doesn't show up in the way that we want. Often doesn't show up in ways that we expect. And so we need to have this open heart and this open mind. And sometimes the rough hand of a man with a wild beard and wild clothes in the wilderness is what's needed to crack us open and truly be prepared. But I don't want to get too far afield. But definitely we're dealing with John this Sunday. A couple other things. As always, as a new month begins, the reminder, pray, 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 pray. Prayer is a good activity. It's a holy thing. Hopefully in your Advent times, either in the mornings, hopefully as a family, and some of these other things, that you are having these blessed opportunities to pray. There's so much happening in the world. I can't keep it all straight, but continue to pray for the world. Pray for those in need. Pray for this church. Pray for people fixing our furnaces and such, because, man, it's never a dull moment these days. The final one is this, and it's hard for me to pass this up. I'm recording this on Wednesday. Hopefully it goes out Wednesday. Hopefully I don't have a problem uploading it. You never know. Because at Emmanuel Lutheran Church, there is never a dull moment, ever. But today is a wonderful day where the church often observes and celebrates one of those wonderful, wonderful saints of old. And it's one of those ones that I like to talk about because we really do a good job of really missing the mark on this guy. And you know what I'm talking about? I'm talking about St. Nicholas. We often get hyper-focused on this weird mutation of this guy, Santa Claus, this time of year. And I'm not a fan of that, but I'm a fan of the real Santa Claus, St. Nicholas. Again, Saint, Santa, are different ways of saying the word from the Greek in many languages. Santa Cruz, Santa Rosa, all those towns out west with Santa literally means saint, that's what it means. Los Angeles means, the angels. So saint and Santa Claus is a shortening of Nicholas. And again, different languages sometimes shorten things different ways. Germans like to call him Klaus, those sorts of things. But he was a real guy. He was a great guy. He was a bishop from a long time ago, like the early 300s. And he was this wonderful guy who did so much good work for the community. And his generosity was to be unstopped. His faithfulness to the church, even to the fact of, getting in an altercation with somebody who had a really rough take on Christ at the Council of Nicaea, is legendary. But often the story that we do with him, with the chimneys, is twisted from such a wonderful story. And I'll end it with this one. Again, I'm going from memory and painting in broad strokes, so if I'm a little bit off on one of the stories. But in one of the towns he was in, because he came from a wealthy family, and he was very committed to using his wealth for good, to make the good world a better place. He chose people over profits, all those other sorts of things. Really good dude. And there was a man who had 3 daughters, but he was deeply impoverished, and but a proud man, wouldn't take help running into problems. And word got to Nick that he was almost going to have to sell his daughters because he couldn't afford a dowry to get them married, all these other sorts of things. So Nicholas, upon hearing that in the night, because he knew he was a proud man and all these other sorts of things, went by his house and the windows were open. He dropped a bag of gold through the window. And lo and behold, the first daughter was saved. The second one was running into the same issue of, I need to get married, don't have enough for a dowry, how are we going to marry her off, do we need to sell her? Man, it was a different time. Again, this is like 300s, man. A different world. And the individual was having the problem again, and so Nicholas was going to, try to sneakily do God's work. That's what Nicholas was doing. He's trying to sneakily do God's work. So as not to embarrass the man, but yet to save these girls. But the windows were closed. So he climbed up on the roof and dropped it down through the chimneys, and it landed in the boots that were drying by the fire in the evening. And the third one, it was getting even more problematic. So Nicholas actually had to confront him about, if my memory serves, his arrogance and his pride, and saying, accepting love from others, accepting gifts is important, just as it is important to give. And because he was such a generous hoss, he was a real hoss, our tradition of giving gifts from St. Nicholas began. Is that to celebrate him via proxy, people would do anonymous giving, but say, yeah, it's a gift from Nicholas, because his witness to the faith of generosity, of care, and it mutated over time. And so that's the key thing to think about, is that we often argue this, that, and the other. He was a great Christian, really good one. You know what I mean? There are still Greek Christians named after him today. And it's this important piece of that we can do good. And Nicholas was such an inspiration that even when he inspired people to do good, they wanted to give credit to him. Interesting stuff about the guy. Hopefully more useful than a fat man in a red suit, but a real good dude, a real hoss that's inspiring us to live the faith, an exemplar of generosity and care to those in need, especially in a season where generosity is key. Man, I will keep going, brothers and sisters. Blessings to you in this wonderful beginning of December. Hopefully we'll see you at Advent Midweek service. Hopefully you enjoy some treats, because it will be a wonderful night. Blessings. We'll talk to you soon. Bye now.